Hello, welcome to another Jewish Museum Milwaukee Museum Moment. My name is Ellie Gettinger, and I'm the Education Director here at Jewish Museum Milwaukee. I am delighted to be with you today as we think about the circus. Actually, we're not going to think about the circus nearly as much as you would think. Today, I am celebrating Milwaukee's greatest showman, Ben Barkin. And I say that because he's pretty much, along with Chappie Fox, the father of Milwaukee's circus parade. And he becomes really well known for the circus parade, among other things. He was incredibly involved in the community in so many different ways. He's one of those people that almost feels Zelig-like, if you think about that Woody Allen movie with the guy, or Forrest Gump, either where he keeps popping up in historical sites in Milwaukee history. He really has this kind of preeminence. And part of that is the fact that he was working, he really is the father of Milwaukee public relations, in the field of public relations for 5 decades. So you get a lot of the sense of promotion and movement and engagement and community development because Ben Barkin was part of telling his own story. He was a master at that. So as we jump into talking about Ben Barkin, we're not going to spend a whole bunch of time exploring the story of his circus world stuff, because that stuff is known. You guys know about that stuff. Instead, we're going to look back at his early beginning and how we get to the guy who is willing to call up Ernest Borgnine and say, yeah, you want to be a clown? Come be a clown in Milwaukee's circus parade. Great. And this is a picture of Ernest Borgnine dressed with, clearly it's a cutout of Ben Barkin posing with Ernest Borgnine, the circus world clown, the circus parade clown. So Ben Barkin, if you do a newspapers.com search, you find all sorts of information about him in every single decade, starting in the 1930s. And this is the first time I noticed his picture in the Wisconsin Jewish Chronicle. He, at age 22, is addressing the junior division of the Jewish Welfare Fund. And he's addressing them because he has a national role in AZA, Aleph Tzadik Aleph, a Jewish youth group. But he had also been active in this campaign prior to that. He comes back from AZA, from working for AZA, with bleeding ulcers and a little bit worse for wear. And, when the time comes to the draft for World War II, he isn't able to be drafted. He's considered a 4F because he has these bleeding ulcers and has, they say he's not fit for combat. So at this point, he takes on the idea of, if he's not going to fight the war abroad, he's going to fight the war at home. And he's going to do that by selling war bonds. So he sells them, and he creates all sorts of different mechanisms to sell war bonds. But one of the things that he does is he recruits celebrities, including Wisconsinite Orson Welles. He comes with Rita Hayworth. We couldn't find a picture of that, but we did find a picture here of an ingenue named Arlene Wellen. And this guy in the uniform, his name is Donald Crisp. And they are being seen with this champion salesman, Jacob Ulevich, who had sold over $6 million worth of war bonds. But, here's another welcome Roddy McDowell for this war bond premiere. So really to make every one of these kinds of events more than just, we're doing this in our community. It's a celebration. It's a celebration that's bringing in national celebrities. So that was one of his innovations. Another was that I found this crazy way of celebrate Hitler and Hirohito's birthdays. He would have people sign bomb casings for them. And then they would, if they had bought a war bond, they were able to sign this bomb casing. And then they would take them back and you would buy the bomb and it would go and, help fight the war. So it's this real one-to-one connection. Look, you are doing something to help win the war in Europe. You're even making Hitler's birthday worse. So, he had all of these ideas. One of these is getting bomb casings signed by people who were buying war bonds, and you could buy them in all sorts of different increments. He talked about, people coming in with $5,000 checks that he couldn't believe that they would have that kind of money. And he talks about other people who would save up and do their 10 cents of a time stamp book. And it was really, he was mobilizing the entire community at all sorts of different levels with all sorts of different promotions. In this case, this was, again, they're signing this bomb casing for Hitler to celebrate his birthday. And it's going to be a way of saying, look, we're going to bomb you, but this is what it's going to look like. He, as I said, got all sorts of jobs opportunities from this. This is from the Green Sheet. This was in 1943. And really they do that. The national war bonds looked to Barkin's ideas and they were implemented throughout the country. It really is this great, tremendous success of PR, of saying, we're going to do this. And he does this for 2 years, I think, without really drawing a salary. That it is, his family, his wife's family is really supporting them and their young son through this moment, because he feels like this is his way of giving back to the country. He was recognized as the Junior Chamber of Commerce Man of the Year. And this is a telegram he received from the National Director of the War Savings Committee. They're saying, as of March 31st, 1945, the citizens of Wisconsin had purchased, in round figures, $689,164,000 worth of war bonds, of e-bonds. This is a remarkable accomplishment, and one in which you and they can justifiably take pride. In achieving it, the citizens of Wisconsin have demonstrated their belief in your slogan, "Don't buy another depression, buy war bonds." In the 7th war loan will challenge the enthusiasm and determination of all of us, especially since the $4 billion bond quota is the largest of any loan to date. I know that you will meet this challenge with the same undaunted resolution as before. Godspeed to you and the tasks that lie ahead. And this is from Ted Gamble. So really the sense of national engagement, national celebration, and locally he's celebrated for this. So he finishes this assignment and the war is ended and he has to figure out what's next. And he's given all these offers. As I said, Danny Kaye is like, maybe you should come manage me. Macy's is offering him things. Schlitz is still saying there's a position open for you. And it's a good friend of the museum's actual father, Barney Solachek says, maybe have you thought there's no public relations firm in Wisconsin? Maybe you should consider creating your own. And they go into business together, Solachek and Barkin, with one other person. They rent a space in a bank. The bank, they don't even have enough money to cover rent at this point. And they start this process of creating public relations space in Wisconsin and take on all sorts of clients. He talks about Bud Barkin talks about meeting with Mr. Eline in the 1950s to push them a little on race relations, knowing that from a PR standpoint, it's going to be a win, and that also it's the right thing to do. At that point, there was no production line in the city, no beer production line in the city that was integrated. And at this point, it's 10 years after Jackie Robinson, or 8 years after Jackie Robinson, and he says this is the time we should integrate beer production. And so he pushes Mr. Eline on this. Mr. Eline initially is like, well, I'm not sure that this is the way we want to go, because how is this going to impact our patrons in the South? And Barkin says this is not only the right thing to do, economically, this is going to be the right thing to do. So Eline tasks him with finding him the first worker to be the person who is crossing the color line in beer production. And he actually finds twins to do this. They take a picture. The picture is in Ebony magazine. It's an ad, and their sales go up both aren't impacted in the South, but the sales in the African-American sales of Schlitz beer go up. So I think he really did see his role as a PR person, not just as, creating a buzz, but creating a buzz in the right way. One of those magical places in which he does that, of course, is the circus parade, in which he was brought this idea by Chappie Fox, who you see positioned next to him. And then he goes out and sells it, and he gets Schlitz to sign on, and they support it for many years. But it becomes an annual event that brings so much attention to Milwaukee, that brings, national, international media coverage. and brings great attention to the history of Milwaukee and Wisconsin and our circus history. So I'm delighted to be able to celebrate Ben Barkin. This is the 20th anniversary tomorrow of his death, his yahrzeit, as it were. And so I think I could only feat him as well. I'm sure he could do a better job of giving the spin here. But we love the history that he brought to the city, and we love the fact that he, always knew how to tell a good story, how to get people involved and engaged. And we can only hope that in our work at Jewish Museum Milwaukee, we can do it to this level of a Ben Barkin type production. This, as in all other museum moments, is brought to you by our generous supporter, Robin Cohen. If you want to learn more about Jewish Museum Milwaukee, go to our website, jewishmuseum.milwaukee.org. You can make a donation there. You can search past museum moments. There are lots of things to do. Thank you so much for your patience, and have a wonderful day. We'll see you next week when we're exploring a preview of our next exhibit, To Paint is to Live.